But I've forgotten how to use it.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And welcome to the second session of Shakespeare. I'm glad that some of you managed to survive and make it back. Macbeth is probably Shakespeare's shortest play. In fact, it was so short that they had to add something to it. At least that's the thinking now among scholars. They took it on the road when the Shakespeare's company was banished from London because of the plague. They had their own way of not spreading the plague. They didn't say, don't go to the theater. They closed the theaters. And the actors, in order to make a living, then had to tour, go out in the countryside. And they toured to country inns and country fairs. They think they took Macbeth on tour and that they lost some of the pages or something, or that they cut it for performance out in the country so it didn't run as long. And then when they came back to the city and revived it, they had to add something to it, and there are two scenes in here that they don't think Shakespeare wrote at all. There's a long speech by a bleeding soldier in the first, and there's a scene with the Queen of the Witches, Hecate, meeting with the three weird sisters. Incidentally, they are called the Weird Sisters because that's the Weird, W-I-R-D, the source of our word weird in English. The Weird was the Scandinavian word for fate. These are not just three witches, they are the three fates. Oh. And they foretell you, they know your past, they know your present, they foretell your future. And there are two remnants actually of the Scandinavian in this play. The other is the title Thane. Thane was the Scandinavian Viking title that was equivalent of the English Earl. And in the last scene, the king's son who has ascended the throne to become King Malcolm gives the first English title of Earl. Henceforth be Earl, the first that ever Scotland in such honor name. And it's a change over to the modern Scotland. Modern 1,000 years ago. This is not just a tragedy. And some authors don't think, some writers don't think this compares to Shakespeare's other tragedies. They say, for example, that the characters, except for Macbeth himself and Lady Macbeth, are not fleshed out. They're just sort of shadows. You don't care about them. You don't care whether they live or die, really. You care about Macbeth. And you care about Lady Macbeth, and that's about all you see in great detail. Well, it's not... Shakespeare didn't regard this as a tragedy, although it's called the tragedy of Macbeth. He regarded it as a history play. And he took the plot from Holinshed's Chronicles, where he took all his other history plots. And the only thing that was... But Shakespeare, of course, can't do anything just ordinary. Everything he does is special, at least I think so. And he took the character of Macbeth, and he took Lady Macbeth, and he made them three-dimensional, and he made them so strong that you can empathize with them, and live with them, and live in them. For example, this is a peculiar play in that Macbeth, who starts out as a hero, helping the King of Scotland put down a rebellion, you watch him become a villain, decide to take the throne for himself. The three witches, the three sisters, the three fates that he's met have told him he will be King of Scotland, and he says, you know, I could do it easily. And when King Duncan names his son the Scottish equivalent of Prince of Wales, Prince of Cumberland, meaning that he's his firstborn is his heir, Macbeth knows he better take action if he's going to take the throne. And so when Duncan comes to visit, as you know, because I know you know the story, he and Lady Macbeth conspire to murder King Duncan and to take the throne for Macbeth. And Macbeth is a bad ruler. He's a tyrant. He kills his friends when he suspects that they're conspiring against him. His best friend, Banquo, whom you meet in Act 1, who is on the heath with Macbeth and meets the three witches when Macbeth meets. Macbeth kills him. Because Macduff, another man whom Macbeth tags as an enemy, has gone to England to be with the Prince Malcolm, who set up his camp in England, across the border. Macbeth sends emissaries to Macduff's castle and kills his wife and children. He's a bad king. And yet, in the very last of the last act, in spite of yourself, you find yourself pulling for Macbeth. Because in the end, defeated, with his wife, his beloved wife, dead, his whole support system has crumbled. He's putting on his armor and he has nobody to talk to about his troubles but the doctor who's been there to treat Lady Macbeth. And he grabs the doctor and he spills his guts to the doctor. And you think, he hasn't got a friend in the world. He hasn't got anybody even to talk to anymore. And he gives that wonderful speech. We'll go over it if we have time. My life has fallen into the sere and yellow leaf. And that which should have attended me, troops of friends I must not look to have. You feel sorry for him. And when he finally faces the enemy, Macduff and Malcolm and the English forces they've gathered with them, brought with them to assail Macbeth's castle, you're kind of pulling for Macbeth in spite of yourself. You have a sneaking hunch you'd kind of like to see him try. Of course, he isn't going to. And then Shakespeare gives a typical Elizabethan touch. They come in waving the severed head of Macbeth. And don't you know they had fun making that prop? We mentioned last week that the play opens on the heath with the three witches. When shall we three meet again in thunder, lightning, or in rain? When the hurly-burly's done, when the battle's lost and won. That will be our set of sun. And it finishes with all of them in chorus saying, fair is foul and foul is fair. And that's one of the themes, the two themes that you pick up all the way through this. Nothing is what it seems to be. That which is bad turns out to be good. That which is good turns out to be bad. That which is firm and solid and you can count on it melts away. And finally, you have nothing to rely on but yourself. And that's one theme. And the other theme, oddly enough, is clothing. Over and over again, the poetic references are to clothing. Was the hope drunk wherein you dressed yourself? Lady Macbeth says to him. Or he says, I don't want to take action. I have bought golden opinions and I would wear them while they are new and shiny. One of his court, who were walking scared because Macbeth is such a tyrant, says his offices hang on him like robes, like ill-fitting robes on a dwarfish thief. There's a lot of imagery of clothing. That is, you put something on which disguises you and shows you, and it is false. It's not real. It's not real. How did Macbeth, a brave soldier, so allow himself to be deluded, to think that it was okay to kill his commander-in-chief and take his place? Well, I think part of what you see in this play is Shakespeare saying that we believe what we want to believe, we hear what we want to hear. Sometimes it's not what is actually said. What is actually said is something else. example from another work. G.K. Chesterton has a mystery story, a Father Brown mystery story, in which some man is murdered in an apartment building, and there's been a janitor out in front cleaning all day long, and they ask the janitor, who has been in here?
Really?
Just say close the door.
Yeah. Who's been in here? And he says, nobody. And they say, really? Nobody? Nobody at all. Well, they check out everybody's alibi who's in the apartment building, and they can't understand how somebody got in and murdered this guy, and they clear everybody in the apartment building. Well, they finally, it turns out it was a demented mailman, postman, and they said, but the postman came, and he's the one. And the janitor who was out in front cleaning said, oh, you mean him? I thought you meant somebody, a stranger. We don't answer the question asked. We answer the question we think they want answered. And that happens to you all the time with other people. You ask a question, and they don't answer the question you asked. It drives lawyers crazy in the courtroom, I can tell you. But that's what's happening here. They listen. They listen inattentively. They listen with their hearts. They don't listen with their ears. They're not hearing what is really said. So, Banquo and Macbeth meet with the three witches on the heath. And it starts right off with this contradiction. So fair and foul a day I have not seen, says Macbeth. What does that mean? Well, it's a bad day because it's thunder and lightning and rain, and it's a good day because they won the battle. It's a bad day because the battle was bloody and they lost friends, and so on and so on. And the witches hail him all, hail Macbeth, hail to thee, Thane of Glamis. Hail to thee, Thane of Cawdor. All hail Macbeth that shalt be king hereafter. He is Thane of Glamis. The Thane of Cawdor was one of the rebels. And he's alive, and he's going to be executed. And the title will be given to Macbeth at the end of this very scene. And he listens absolutely slack-jawed. All hail Macbeth that shall be king hereafter. And his friend Banquo steps forward and says, you're telling him all about his future. To me you speak not. If you can look into the seeds of time and say which grain will grow and which will not, speak then to me, who neither beg nor fear your favors nor your hate. And the witches greet Banquo with lesser than Macbeth and greater. Not so happy, yet much happier. Thou shalt get kings, though thou be none. He doesn't understand it, but you will as the play goes on. He is content with his life. Macbeth is not. He dies and is therefore happy. Macbeth lives to be unhappy, to be defeated. Thou shalt get kings, though thou be none. His son survives and will get into the royal lineage. And they disappear, leaving the two men alone on the heath. How did they do that on a bare Elizabethan stage? Well, the secret of that is the trapdoor that was in the floor of the Elizabethan stage. We know that. We know it from such plays as Christopher Marlowe's Faustus, where the devil comes up out of hell onto the stage. We know there was a trapdoor in the floor. And I'm pretty sure they made use of it 2 or 3 times in this play. Certainly once here, where the witches just disappear. And that's not so easy to do if you don't have flash powder to set off to blind the audience temporarily, and then when they can see again, the stage is empty. But you could do it, for example, and I've seen it done this way, both men, both Banquo and Macbeth, have heavy cloaks, floor-length cloaks, against the cold Scottish weather. And they come forward on the stage, and they swirl their cloaks, and they look, and where are the witches? Where are the witches? And the witches have gone underneath the ground while they swirl their cloaks around. There are various ways of staging it, but believe me, it was the trapdoor that was involved. You'll see the trapdoor at use again when the ghost comes to Macbeth. The Thane of Cawdor lives, says Macbeth. Why? Ross, another nobleman, comes in and says, "The king bade me from him call thee Thane of Cawdor, in which addition, most hail, most worthy Thane." And Banquo says, "The Thane of Cawdor lives. Why do you dress me in borrowed robes?" And Angus, another courtier, says, "Who was the Thane lives yet, but under heavy judgment of that life. He is going to be executed, and the title is yours." It's a funny scene, this. And I don't mean hilariously funny, I mean odd scene. Because Macbeth is musing the whole time, sort of off by himself, talking to himself, while Banquo talks to the two courtiers who come in. And they are, Banquo is explaining about the witches. He says, "Oft times to win us to our harm, the instruments of darkness tell us truths, win us with honest trifles, to betray us with deepest consequences." And Macbeth is over by himself, talking to himself. I told you, Shakespeare would have loved to write for the movies, or for television. He would have loved to be able to have the voiceover soliloquy, where the guy is standing there, his mouth is not moving, and you hear his voice speaking his thoughts, the voiceover. Well, he didn't have the voiceover, so he did the soliloquy. And how they did the soliloquy, the guy talks to the audience, contemplatively, not a direct appeal, but, and not to the people on stage. And the people on stage act as though he weren't speaking, as though they didn't hear him. They have to act to play deaf to that. And it depends on their not even flinching as he goes on and on. He says, "This supernatural soliciting cannot be ill, cannot be good. If ill, why hath it given me earnest of success, commencing in the truth? I am Thane of Cawdor. If good, why do I yield to that suggestion whose horrid image doth unfix my hair? Present fears are less than horrible imaginings. Nothing is but what is not." In the next scene, they report the death of the Thane of Cawdor and how he was executed. And the title does indeed devolve to Macbeth. And Duncan makes the mistake of announcing publicly that his son, my eldest Malcolm, we name hereafter Prince of Cumberland. And when they leave the stage, Macbeth by himself says, "That is a step on which I must fall down, or else o'erleap, for in my way it lies." Here's part of the imagery that Shakespeare uses in Macbeth. "Stars, hide your fires, let not light see my black and deep desires." The exact opposite of Romeo and Juliet, where night is comforting to lovers. It allows them to hide from reality and from criticism, and they bring their own light to the darkness. This night is threatening and black and full of wind and thunder and dark clouds overhead. This night is threatening. So whenever they have a night image here, it is quite the opposite of Romeo and Juliet. You meet Lady Macbeth almost immediately. And she is, those of you who've seen the play remember, she is glorying in the news. "Glamis thou art, and Cawdor, and shalt be what thou art promised." Because he writes her of what the three sisters have told him. Yet I do fear thy nature. It is too full of the milk of human kindness to catch the nearest way. Thou wouldst be great, art not without ambition, but without the illness should attend it. What thou wouldst highly, that wouldst thou holily. Wouldst not play false, and yet would wrongly win. You want everything, but you don't want to cheat for it. And you've got to cheat for it. You've got to play dirty to get to the top. Milk of human kindness. We use that all the time, don't we? There are about eight points in Macbeth where something that Shakespeare invented for this play has become common usage for us. And the milk of human kindness is such a phrase. But Lady Macbeth, I'm going to push him. I'm going to make him do it. The raven is hoarse that croaks the fatal entrance of Duncan into my battlements. And she greets him. Thy letters have transported me beyond this ignorant present, and I feel now the future in the instant. And they, Lord and Lady Macbeth greet each other, but he's looking very suspicious, and she says to him, your face, my Thane, is as a book where men may read strange matters. To beguile the time, look like the time. Bear welcome in your eye, your hand, your tongue. Look like the innocent flower, but be the serpent underneath. Don't look so guilty. Lady Macbeth is all resolution, all gung-ho, let's get this done, let's do it in this portion, and Macbeth is hanging back. If it were done when 'twere done, then 'twere well it were done quickly. If it was over with when we did the murder, then we'd better murder it immediately. If assassination could trammel up the consequences. But this blow might be the be-all and the end-all here. He's here in double trust. First, I am his kinsman and his subject, and as his host, who should against his murder shut the door. Besides, this Duncan hath borne his faculties so meek, hath been so clear in his great office, that his virtues will plead like angels. He's a good man. I like him. And he's been good to me. And I am related to him. And more, I am his host. And the laws of hospitality in old Scotland were as strong as they were you read about it in Persia and Arabia. It was his host who should take care. Once you're out from under my roof, I can be your enemy, but not when I accept you as my guest. We will proceed no further in this business. He hath honored me of late. I have bought golden opinions from all sorts of people, which would be worn now in their newest gloss, not cast aside so soon. And she says, what's the matter with you? Was the hope drunk wherein you dressed yourself? Hath it not slept since, and wakes it now to look so green? I dare do all that doth become a man. They argue back and forth. I'm not afraid, I'm just not sure we should do it. And then he says, if we should fail, and she answers, we fail. Except when Judith Anderson played the part of Lady Macbeth to Maurice Evans' Macbeth, she read the line quite differently. And it suits the Lady Macbeth of Judith and Anderson. You know who she was. You all know. Did you see Rebecca? She was Mrs. Danvers. She played Mrs. Danvers in the movie of Rebecca. And she was a powerful Lady Macbeth. And Macbeth said to her, if we should fail. And she said, we fail? Totally different reading of the line. Two words that the actor can make a lot of. I'm not sure I agree with her interpretation. So that night, with Duncan upstairs asleep, and his servants sleeping in the room with him, after dinner, they meet again. Macbeth and his lady. You have that wonderful speech that you all know. Is this the dagger that I see before me, the handle toward my hand? Where he imagines the dagger. I'll take it and I'll kill it. No, I can't do it. Yes, I can. And then, has he made up his mind? The bell rings, the hour, and he has a wonderful exit line. The bell invites me. Hear it not, Duncan, for it is a knell that summons thee to heaven or to hell. And you know he's gone to commit the murder. He goes, and Lady Macbeth comes in and she's waiting for word. Waiting for word. I've drugged the two servants who sleep in his room. And they're sleeping like the dead. And he comes down, he's done the murder. And he's carrying the dagger, the bloody dagger with him. But he's got it in his hand, he's got it concealed, and she doesn't see it until much later in the scene. She says, I'd have done it myself if he didn't look like my father when he was asleep. I wasn't afraid. And he says, I could not say amen. They, the two servants, did say, God bless us. I could not say amen. Wherefore could I not pronounce amen? I had most need of blessing, and amen stuck in my throat. I thought I heard a voice cry, sleep no more, Macbeth doth murder sleep. There's another one that you know. The innocent sleep that knits up the raveled sleeve of care. And she says, you've got to stop this. You've got to stop this. Now, I'm going to get some water and wash your hand. And at that point, he raises his hand and she sees that he has the bloody dagger with him. Why did you bring the daggers from the place? I'm not going back. I'm not going to take them back. We said we were going to blame the servants. How can we blame the servants if the daggers are down here? You give them to me. That isn't what she says. She says, oh, infirm of purpose, give me the daggers. I'm not afraid. The sleeping and the dead are but as pictures. 'Tis the eye of childhood that fears a painted devil. If he do bleed, I'll gild the faces of the group. I'll take blood from him and I'll smear the sleeping grooms with it. And she exits and leaves him. And then she comes back. My hands are of your color, but I shame to wear a heart so white. And she's covered with blood now. And then she says, don't worry about it. A little water clears us of this. She couldn't be more wrong, of course, as you know. Those of you who know the story so well, she washes, but much good it does. She never washes it out of her mind. Macbeth, on the other hand, who has been so wishy-washy, I can't do it. I can't do it. Well, I'll do it. No, I can't do it. All right, don't push me, I'll do it. In and out, becomes strong and tyrannical. She crumbles. From here on in, it's all downhill for Lady Macbeth. One of the most interesting lines in the play, to me, is when they pretend they discover the murder. Ring the alarm bell, murder, treason, Banquo, Donalbain, Malcolm. Banquo's Macbeth's friend. Donalbain and Malcolm are the two sons of the dead king. Awake, our royal master's murdered. And Lady Macbeth's reaction. Woe, alas, in our house? was Lady Bird Johnson's first remark when she heard that Kennedy had been shot and killed? Oh, and it had to happen in Texas. Did that remind you of Lady Macbeth? I often think that the unjust suspicion that several conspiracy nuts advanced after the Kennedy assassination, that the Johnsons had had something to do with it, was possibly based on that. The vague memory of Lady Macbeth saying, oh, and it had to happen in our house. And Lady Bird Johnson saying, it happened in Texas. The king's sons depart hastily under cover of night. Donalbain goes to Ireland, and Malcolm, the elder son, the Prince of Cumberland, to England. As Donalbain says, our separated fortunes shall keep us both the safer. Where we are, there's daggers in men's smiles. For those of you who are scholars of the period, I call your attention to that line. Chaucer had just been brought out in a new edition at the turn of the century, around 1600, give or take a couple of years, by a man named Spate. And Spate's Chaucer was widely read. And I'm pretty sure Shakespeare read it, because one of the most famous lines in Chaucer is talking about the treason as the smiler with the knife beneath his cloak. And this image that the king's son says, where we are, there's daggers in men's smiles, is too close for me. I suspect that Shakespeare had that Chaucer resonating in the back of his head when he wrote it. So, by the time we see it's listed as Act 3 here, but they didn't have separate acts. You will see, incidentally, a page holding up a printed sign in the Henry V. The outside the tavern, for instance, or the King's Chambers. I'm pretty sure they didn't do that, but still, it is Act 3 in the book. And Banquo is talking to himself as the scene opens. Thou hast it now, King, Cawdor, Glamis, all, as the weird sisters promise, and I fear thou play'st most foully for it. May they not be oracles and set me up in hope as well? I wonder if what they foretold for me will come true. Now that's a little bit of foreshadowing, because he shortly asks if he wants to go see the witches again. Macbeth comes in, and there's a scene between him and Banquo in which he questions Banquo about where are you going and how long are you going to be. Ride you this afternoon? Aye, good my lord. Oh, we should else have desired your good advice. Is it far you ride? As far, my lord, as will fill up the time twixt this and supper. I'll be here for the dinner. And you wonder why Macbeth is asking him these questions. He's asking him because in the very next scene, when Banquo leaves, he's setting up Banquo's murder with two ragtag men that he's hired to be the murderers. He explains it again. These endless soliloquies, these people talking to themselves, what Shakespeare wouldn't have given for voiceover. And he says to himself, to be thus is nothing, but to be safely thus. Our fears in Banquo stick deep, and in his royalty of nature reigns that which would be feared. There's none but he whose being I do fear. They held him as father to a line of kings. Upon my head they placed a fruitless crown and put a barren scepter in my grip. Thence to be wrenched with an unlineal hand, no son of mine succeeding. If it be so, then for Banquo's issue have I defiled my mind. For them the gracious Duncan have I murdered. And mine eternal jewel given to the common enemy of man to make them kings. The seed of Banquo, kings. That's the reason he sets up the murder. He can't stand the thought of Banquo's sons being kings. Thank you.
There's no place to put it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. But Lady Macbeth is doing badly. Macbeth is getting meaner and meaner and nastier and nastier, tougher and tougher. Lady Macbeth is going downhill. Naught is had, all spent where our desire is got without content. 'Tis safer to be that which we destroy than by destruction dwell in doubtful joy. Things without all remedy should be without regret. What's done is done. Well, not really. It continues to play on her. This is a little mood scene while we wait to, they're up above. Because down below, on the open stage, the murderers are lying in wait for Banquo. And they jump out, they do kill him, but his son, Fleance, escapes. There's one image to which I would call your attention. Do you remember my saying how much I enjoyed the picture of Dawn in Romeo and Juliet, which is night's candles are burnt out, and jocund day stands tiptoe on the misty mountain top. Well, the opposite, the description of twilight, of the coming of darkness, is here, and it's also one of my favorite passages. Light thickens, and the crow takes wing to the rooky wood. Good things of day begin to droop and drowse, while night's black agents to their prey do rouse. Never mind those last two lines. It's just two words, really, that I think is so brilliant. Light thickens. Have you ever watched Twilight? Fall, and the light appears, the air appears to get heavier. Interesting. So they have this big banquet, and here again, I think the trapdoor comes into play, because there are a dozen noblemen attending this banquet with Macbeth. And he comes in and they say, come, sit down here at the table, which you know the little stagehands pushed out, the ostensibly servants of Macbeth, have pushed out from the curtained area behind out onto the stage. And the noblemen take their seats on the various stools, and they say, sit down with us. And he says, there is no place. There's no place. There's a place reserved for you. Where? Here, good my lord. And he sees everybody's in the place. And then perhaps he walks around to the front and he sees what the audience sees. That in that place that the guests think is empty, but he sees somebody, is Banquo, bleeding and ghastly. Oh, did the Elizabethans have fun with that makeup? Lots of blood, lots of gore, pale, white face, and he sees the ghost of Banquo. And Lady Macbeth has to try to make an alibi for him. He's been, gentlemen, I think you'll have to go now. I'm sorry. We'll call the banquet off. He's been like this since he was a kid. He sees things. You just have to forgive him. And she gets rid of him. And Macbeth, they say my blood will have blood. Stones have been known to move and trees to speak. Send for Macduff. I'm sorry, but Macduff is gone. He's gone to England to join Malcolm. And Macbeth says, ordinarily, that wouldn't bother me. I have spies in all their households. I own some of their servants. There's not a one of them that in his house I keep a servant fed. For mine own good, all causes shall give way. I am in blood steeped in so far that I wade no more, returning were as tedious as going o'er. And she says, go to bed, get some sleep, for heaven's sake. You don't know what you're talking about. But he does. The noblemen are talking behind his back. Lennox, one of the Scottish noblemen, has a scene here. The gracious Duncan was pitied of Macbeth, and marry, he was dead. The right valiant Banquo walked out too late, whom you might say, if it please you, Fleance killed, Fleance is Banquo's son, for Fleance fled. Men must not walk too late. How monstrous it was for Malcolm and for Donalbain to kill their gracious father. How it did grieve Macbeth, did he not straight in pious rage the two delinquents? He killed the two servants while they slept that were accused of it. They could never say, no, we didn't, with any conviction, because he killed them. It would anger any heart alive to hear the men deny it. That's kind of sarcasm. And you know that the servants are not, that the noblemen are doubting Macbeth, that they don't trust him, that they're afraid of him. So he does go to see the witches once more. One more time. And this is where double, toil and trouble, fire burn, and cauldron bubble. You know that line, don't you? And as they finish their dance and they finish their recipe and they stir the pot, by the pricking of my thumbs, something wicked this way comes. And what is it? Macbeth. And he asks them, please, tell me the future. Tell me more. Macbeth, beware Macduff, beware the Thane of Fife. This is the first witch. The second, they summon up an apparition to speak for them. Be bloody, bold, and resolute. Laugh to scorn the power of man, for none of woman born shall harm Macbeth. Ah, what need have I to fear Macduff? Yet I'll make assurance double sure, and take a bond of fate. Thou shalt not live, that I may tell pale-hearted fear it lies and sleep in spite of thunder. He hears distant thunder, distant warnings. And the third apparition comes at the bidding of the witches and says to him, Macbeth shall never vanquished be, till great Birnam Wood to high Dunsinane Hill shall come against him. And then what have I got to worry about? The forest can't move. The forest will never come up the hill. No man of woman born will give me any trouble. You say fear Macduff. I'm not afraid of Macduff. Macbeth fled to England. And that is enough to set Macbeth off. And as I say, he sends an emissary, or emissaries, to Macduff's castle and murders his wife and child. In retaliation. Nothing more. One of the scenes that Shakespeare wrote many, many times, in different ways, takes place in England then. Malcolm, the king's eldest son, is in England. It's a tedious scene in many ways. Doesn't keep up with the tension, the excitement, the poetry, the drama of the rest of the play. What's tedious about it is that Malcolm is playing games with the emissary with Macduff, who's come from Scotland, begging them, get on your horses, get up there, give us some relief, help us out. We need you now. But Malcolm pretends. He says, I don't think you'd want me as your king. It's very good of you to ask, but I'll level with you. I'm a spendthrift. I'm dissolute. I drink a lot, constantly. I chase the girls, but I think of nothing else, as a matter of fact. And finally he goads Macduff into saying, well, if you're like that, you're right. We don't want you in Scotland. Fit to govern? No, not to live. I'm leaving. I'm not going to importune you any further to come with us. And then Malcolm says, well, it was all a test. I wanted to see if you were really an emissary from Macbeth trying to lure me into this. But the truth is, I don't drink, I'm still a virgin, and I'm very brave. It's a dull scene, it's a stupid scene, and they play it pretty fast these days because it doesn't help with the build of the drama, which starts at this point. It starts when the messenger comes from Scotland to Macduff to tell him that his wife and children are dead. My children too? Wife, children, servants, all that could be found. My wife killed too? I said so. And Macduff says he has no children. In other words, I can't get even with him. I can't kill his children. What can I do? All my pretty ones, did you say? All my pretty chickens and their dam in one fell swoop. Fell swoop. It's another one that we use all the time, isn't it? And I cannot but remember that such things were that were most precious to me. And Malcolm says, pull yourself together. The force is now going to Scotland. We are going to invade with these English forces backing us up. We're going to take the castle. We're going to put Macbeth down. We'll get your revenge. The night is long that never finds a day. And what most playgoers wait the whole play for is the next scene. Lady Macbeth sleepwalking. Coming in, carrying the candle, out. Breathe. Out. Here it is. And the doctors say to the nurses, you shouldn't know anything about this. She has spoke what she should not. Yes, she has. She's shut off her mouth. She has told everybody, out, damn spot, out, I say. 1, 2, well, then it's time to do. Actresses love this. Dame Judith Anderson could take that little speech, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines of type, and stretch it out for 10 minutes. It's very difficult to stage. And one of the reasons it's difficult to stage is that Lady Macbeth is supposed to be carrying a candle. And I give you odds that 9 out of 10 candles blow out as the actress comes on stage moving, the air moving as she walks. Blow that candle out. And that kills part of the effect, because part of the effect is her standing there with that ghastly single light under her face. They darken the stage. Oh, what Shakespeare wouldn't give him to be able to darken the stage so that he could have just Lady Macbeth in the dark with that one candle. But as I say, the candle had better stay lit or you've got a real problem. So, Shakespeare is now doing one of the things he does best, probably better than any playwright of his age, moving from one location to another, back and forth between two locations. He moves from the English camp to Dunsinane, from Birnam Wood to Dunsinane, from Birnam Wood to Dunsinane. Things are not going well in Dunsinane. The wonderful speech that Macbeth has when he realizes my life, I have lived long enough. My way of life is fallen into the sere, the yellow leaf. And that which should accompany old age, honor, love, obedience, troops of friends, I must not look to have. But in their stead, curses not loud but deep, mouth honor, breath, which the poor heart would fain deny, and dare not. Give me my armor. And the doctor, who is reported on Lady Macbeth, as I say, is standing there, and he's the only person, other than Seton, who's a servant. Macbeth is not going to confide in a servant. But he spills all his worries, all his concerns to the doctor because he has nobody left to talk to. Nobody. I shall not be afraid of death and bane till Birnam Wood come to Dunsinane. And out he goes to start the battle, and the doctor says, were I from Dunsinane away and clear, prophet again would hardly draw me here. Oh, get me out of here. And meanwhile, back in Birnam Wood, what is the commander doing? Let every soldier hew him down a bough and bear it before him. Thereby we shall shadow the numbers of our host, and make discovery err and report of us. And thus, we move into the part where little by little you begin to forget that Macbeth is a tyrant. That Macbeth has murdered this one, he's murdered that one. He's responsible in a way for his own wife's death. He certainly, together, they took action. But he's brave to the end. Hang out the banners on the outward wall, the cry is still they come. Our castle's strength will laugh a siege to scorn. Let them there lie till famine and ague eat them up. Were they not forced with those that should be ours, we might have met them dareful, beard to beard, and beat them backward home. I'm going to let them besiege the castle. They can't do anything to us. The castle's strong. The problem is that half of their troops are people that should be my troops. So I don't have enough to actually go out and fight them. But let them stay out there and starve. And that's when they bring the news that the queen is dead. Just when he gets his courage up, full defiance, the queen is gone. It's a beautiful speech, and you know it well. I'll just go over it once with you. Well, she should have died hereafter. It sounds rather heartless. she would have died anyway, sometime. But I don't think that's what he means. I think he means she should have died later, hereafter. She shouldn't have died now, she should have died later. There would have been a time for such a word, tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow. Creeps in this petty pace from day to day to the last syllable of recorded time. And all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death. Out, out brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon a stage, and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Life is hollow, life is empty, the crown I have is meaningless, nothing has any meaning. And just at that point, I mean, you think he's got kicked enough, right? His wife is dead. He realizing the emptiness of what he's got, and the messenger comes in and says, "My gracious Lord, I should report that which I say I saw, but I know not how to do it." "Well, say, sir, as I did stand my watch upon the hill, I looked toward Burnham, and anon methought the woods began to move." And of course, again, very calm, he attacks the messenger. Macbeth grabs a handful of shirt. "Liar! Slave! No, go ahead and hit me, but it's true. It's true." And now he sees that he's misunderstood what the sisters said to him. He thought that they were saying, "You can't be attacked," because until Burnham Wood moves to Dunsinane, and that's an impossibility. They didn't say that. They said, "You can be attacked when Burnham Wood moves to Dunsinane." He didn't hear right. He heard what he wanted to hear. Well, never mind, he says. I begin to doubt the equivocation of the fiend that lies like truth. I begin to be weary of the sun and wish the estate of the world were now undone. Ring the alarm bell. Blow wind, come rack. At least we'll die with harness on our back. And we have alternating scenes, below and above, below and above. People fighting, people chasing each other. And at last, Macbeth meets young Seward, the son of one of his former noblemen. They fight, he kills the kid easily, and exalts, "Thou wast born of woman. But swords I smile at, weapons laugh to scorn, brandished by man that's of a woman born." But at last, he has to face Macduff. "I'm not going to kill myself," he's saying when Macduff enters. "While I live, the gashes do better on them. I'll go down fighting," he's saying. And Macduff says, "Fight with me. Turn, hellhound, turn." Macbeth says, "Of all men else I have avoided thee. Get thee back. My soul is too much charged with blood of thine already. I've done enough to you. I don't want to hurt you. Get away from me. We were friends once. I don't want to hurt you." "No, no," he said, "let thy blade fall on vulnerable crests. I bear a charmed life, which must not yield to one of woman born." And Macduff laughs at him. "Well, to spare thy charm, and let thy angel, whom thou still hast served, tell thee, Macduff was from his mother's womb untimely ripped. I wasn't born." He was delivered by cesarean section. He didn't have a normal birth. They didn't call that being born. And Macbeth tries then to avoid him. "I'll not fight with thee." But Macduff insists. And Macbeth says, all right, we'll fight. I will not yield to kiss the ground before young Malcolm's feet, to be baited with the rabble's curse, till Burnham would do come to die. And now opposed being of no woman born, yet I will try my last. You know this line, lay on Macduff, damned be he that first cries hold enough. Two actors of my acquaintance playing that scene. And Macbeth took that line, he says, lay on Macbeth. Now how are you going to make that rhyme with enough? And from the wings we heard him saying, and damned be he who first cries hold enough. Oh boy. Sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. But of course they fight off stage because the beheading can't be on stage. And Macduff carries in the bloody head of the tyrant, and the audience applauds. But we who have followed the play throughout are torn. Because in the end, Macbeth was brave. At the end, he saw the folly of his ways. Just wasn't in time to save his soul, and it wasn't in time to save him from doing evil things. But we have a sneaking admiration for that kind of courage. All right, I'm beaten, but I'll fight anyway. And his desire to spare Macduff, for example. I've done enough to you. Go away. Don't fight with me. I don't want to fight with you. I've done enough to you. And we have this sneaking admiration for him, as I say. And that's part of the genius of the play. I want you, if you can, to read this play for yourself. To pick up these little tags of imagery, the darkness of night, of the distant thunder, of the ominous hooting of the owl, the storms at night. Don't be too carried away with the scenes of the witches and the bloody apparitions that they bring to speak. It was all the pageantry that they enjoyed in the Elizabethan theater. We could do it in the movies here. We find it very difficult to do on stage. But this one I'd like you to read for yourself, because it's short, and you can pick up a good deal of it. You'll say, oh, I know, I remember that, I remember that. I want you to see it in your mind's eye. It's very rich, it's very full, it's much more action-packed than most. Next week, we're doing an action-packed chronicle, Henry IV, Part 1. And I billed it as the dysfunctional family. Because the part of it that we no longer appreciate has to do with Falstaff. It's a big, corpulent, hail fellow well met who goes a-drinking with the prince. He's his drinking companion, his buddy. They play darts in the taverns, sort of. They have a lot of friends, low-life friends together. And people in the Elizabethan era loved that part of it. They loved Falstaff. They thought he was terribly funny. We're not going to think he's funny, because a lot of it depends on slang. There's a wonderful, wonderful section we're not going to pay any attention to that has Prince Hal and Falstaff planning a robbery. They're going to rob the king's exchequer. They're going to rob the king's messengers with gold, who have gold, because they need some money. And the prince says, it's not a crime, after all, it's my money. But they put on masks, and they lie in wait for the two messengers, and they do. But Falstaff, of course, is a coward, and he's hiding over in one corner while the prince does all the work. And then afterwards, the prince catches him telling the story to their friends in the tavern. I took him on, and there were 20. I think there were. I say 16, but I do believe there were 20 of them all. And the prince overhears and calls him a liar. And we're not going to fool with that part of it, because it's no longer as funny as it used to be. we're just going to deal with the story of the three Henrys. King Henry IV, the father, who took the throne from Richard II. His son, Prince Hal, who survives his tavern drinking days to become a very creditable king and to lead the English in one of their best victories in France, the Battle of Agincourt. There's Henry V. And another Henry, Henry Percy, the neighbor's kid. There's a great scene that we will do in which the king, talking to his son, says, "Why aren't you like the neighbor's kid?" I mean, he's getting all A's, and you're flunking out. And it's a discussion that many a father has had with many a son. And there are two points he makes. One, I wasn't like that when I was your age. I was different. I do what I did, and be like the neighbor's kid. And so we're going to talk about that, and not about the comic portions.
Thank you.
Yeah, pretty girls coming.
If she